Good morning, everybody. This is Dustin Freund. It is Monday morning and the beginning of week 2 for the Ghosts Betwixt Kickstarter campaign. I thought it would be fun to produce a video about the top 5 favorite things, my top 5 favorite things about this game back here. And I view each of these as pillars of the game, where if any one of these 5 were removed, it would not be the game that is near and dear to my heart, and it would not exist without these 5. So I'm going to tell you about those right now. So if there's anything you need to know about the Ghosts Betwixt, it's in this video, I think. So number 1 is random but controlled exploration. So what do I mean about that? Exploration in a dungeon crawler, a tabletop game, or a video game is integral to the genre dungeon crawler. A dungeon crawler is going through an environment and not knowing what's behind the next door or behind the next corner. What type of room is it gonna be? What's in the room? What sort of events are gonna happen? Like, you just don't know. You might know your objective, but you don't know what's between you and the objective. So the Ghost Betwixt, that was a very important element that we included in the game. So that's why there are those door standees. They kind of signify, okay, you're now in this segment in the mission, and you're gonna fight the monsters or do the events or whatever in that segment. And then when you're done, you're gonna open the next door, and then it's gonna start again, and you're gonna see what new experiences you're gonna have in that next room, and you just don't know. So it's all random, right? But when I say controlled, that's super important for me as a designer, because I can't have all map tiles available to you. I can't have all monsters available to you in Mission 1, so there has to be some control. So, Mission 1 is, you have the first 7 map tile tokens, which are of the Bennard's farmhouse, but you're not going to have also map tokens for the corn maze or the basement or anything like that, or monsters in those respective environments too. You're just going to have monsters available to you in Mission 1 and in that farmhouse. So that's really cool. I like that a lot. It gives you guys, it gives players a lot of that randomization, adds replayability and that sense of the unknown, which I personally love as a gamer. But for me as a game designer, it also allows me to, it's not this unwieldy thing. I can pare it down and to let's say Mission 1 and randomize it, shuffle it up there, if that makes sense. So that's really number 1 thing that I really love about our game. Number 2, evolving loot. I could talk about this for a while, and I know I have. I'll try to condense it as much as possible. When you play certain dungeon crawlers, you get a equipment deck, and you might draw that best weapon after the first battle. It's possible. It's something that bothered me with Warhammer Quest. I got the game, I was so excited for it. It's this huge, sprawling dungeon crawler, but there was the equipment deck, and it's like, here you go. And I did grab one of the legendary weapons. I think it was a bow and arrow for my elf character real early in the game, and I was kind of disappointed in a weird way. It had the opposite effect. You would think I'd be excited, but I was disappointed because I wanted to slowly progress up to the best weapon, just like any other, great game. Which Warhammer Quest is a great game, don't get me wrong. But when I made this game, I could not have it like that. So how it works is you start with the base equipment deck, and then as the campaign progresses, you're going to do things that allows you to shuffle in new equipment cards into that deck to where it's going to build and build and build. So then, you only have access to certain gear at certain points of the game, but as you unlock new gear, you're going to have a better chance of getting that new stuff. There are the brown equipment deck, which is your base. There's a green equipment deck, which is rare, and then there's a blue equipment deck, which is unique, and those are introduced as you go along the campaign as well. And yes, those also grow in equipment as well. So I'm really excited about that. I think you guys are gonna love that. It gives me that feeling of progression and like I've been playing Monster Hunter World a lot on PlayStation. And it's just like I'm very motivated to just get to that next tier level or equipment tier, if you will. Just continuing to see my characters grow, and I think this evolving loot system is really important to give you that sense of progression. All right, so that's evolving loot, number 2. Number 3, battle tactics mixed with dice rolling. All right, so let's see. When it comes to Dungeon Crawler, the battles, right, is a huge component. It wouldn't be a Dungeon Crawler if there wasn't some monsters or something to fight, right? If there is, I haven't figured it out. There has to be that combat element. So, as you guys know, there is a lot of fighting in this game, and it's mainly based around dice rolling. But there's some dice rolling mitigation and luck mitigation mechanics in it. So it's not just mindless rolling. It's also, I could talk about this all day too, but I'll try to condense it. Of course, you probably know by now, you can take an offensive or a defensive stance, which gives you an additional offensive die or defensive die to use on your next attack or defense roll. Let's see. It's important for you to plan out your next moves and to use your actions efficiently. So, for example, since you only have 2 actions per character per round, let's say you're taking Bill and you just decide to move just for whatever reason and then attack somebody or whatever. It might be, or use an item or something, it might be wiser, like if you can sit there, maybe there is a monster next to you, but maybe it's not the monster you really want to kill, but it's a decision to make. Maybe you do want to bash at that one because that was one action, and then your second action could be that offensive stance. That gives you an extra die for your next move, your next activation. So that's one kind of decision to make in combat. Secondly, you do have that blindside bonus where you can move around, move behind a monster, and that ups your attack die by 1. So if Bill is strength 3 and he moves around behind a monster, his strength becomes 4. So his damage, his potential damage increases. So you have those 2 decisions. Do you want to try to prepare for a blindside attack or prepare for that offensive stance? So it's kind of that balance, that decision making throughout each round that you play of the Ghosts Betwixt in the combat. So that's really cool, and that's just part of it. There's more decisions that are made or introduced to you. New talents that your characters learn will give you some new decisions you need to make. So, for example, one of Avalyn's talents it's called Hit and Run, I believe, and she gets a passive 1 damage if she is able to attack a monster that is 4 spaces away from anybody else. So a monster just hanging out there by itself. You could, that's a decision for Avalyn's player to make. You might want to try to pick off some of those monsters that have gone outside of the herd, if you will. So there's lots of decisions to make in the combat, and you'll see as you learn more abilities, as you get more weapons, there's more and more decisions and tactics that you're going to have to consider to have success during the combat phase. So that's number 3. Number 4, character customization. I've talked a little bit about the new talents you learn. So you level up to level 7 in chapter 1, and level number 1, level number 4, level number 7 are called talent levels. So when you reach those levels, you're introduced new talents in the talent tree, which you can choose from. So Avalyn's, for example, she has a decision between more offensive talents or kind of support healing talents. One is a tarot card as she can use. So how that works is she rolls 4d6s, and any pair she gets, so say she gets 2 4s, you then look on the card and it says 4s. One random family member gains sharpened, which is a buff, right? So as you're building out your characters, it's not only building out your characters, you're building out an entire team. So if Avalyn's going down the offensive path, you might want to make sure Joan is going down her healing path, just so you have somebody who is playing that healing role. And all characters can perform different roles for sure. So there's that. There's also, I haven't talked a lot about this, but there are weapon proficiencies. So there are blunt weapons, which are like the baseball bats, the golf clubs. Hold on one second, Kai. My 4-year-old's walking in on me in the middle of this video, which is no problem. You have liquid weapons, so like your squirt guns and things like that. You have projectiles, which are your slingshots. Choppy weapons, which are your like spatulas and things like that. So there's all sorts of different weapon types, and you can learn new weapon proficiencies in various ways. And that will allow you to, if you're, let's say Bill is proficient in the choppy weapons, so spatulas, like metal grilling spatulas. If he becomes more and more proficient, he can re-roll his hit die a certain number of times based on his weapon proficiency level. So lots of character customization. And one thing that I forgot to mention when talking about the talents is every talent can be leveled up all the way to level 3. You'll earn talent points throughout the game, which you can use to invest in your character's favorite talents, to boost them up and then makes them more powerful. And some of them behave differently based on their level. So that's really cool too. I really like that. So that was character customization. All right, 5. You've heard me talk about this. You've read about it. 5 is the story and the environment. This environment, it's near and dear to my heart. It's very intimate to me, just because of how personal it is. I've grown up in Kansas City and in the suburbs, and just this, where I live is important to me. And so I've tried to include a lot of myself into this game, into the story, and the story is so weird and wacky. You probably have gotten hints about where it goes from the prologue and things like that, but again, so much of the stuff that happens later in the campaign, like, nobody knows about. So it's really exciting. It's a little scary, to be honest with you. Just where the story goes, and how different and weird it gets. I'm so excited for everybody to see it, but it's like this big build-up that I just cannot wait for everybody to find out what happens, and it's gonna surprise you. So I'm very anxious about the story, what people think of it. I've had really good feedback so far about it, and the writing style, and finding that good tone between spooky and lighthearted and funny at times. So I think we've hit it pretty well, but I'm excited to see what you guys think once you get your mitts on a copy. So that's the top 5 for me. Number 1 was that random but controlled exploration. Number 2, the evolving loot. Number 3, the tactics in battle. Number 4, character customization. Number 5, the story and environment. So there's a lot more to talk about. I could probably make a top 10 list, but I think those are the 5 most important. So guys, I'm really interested in what you think. If you have any questions, this is going to be an awesome week. Week 2, we have a lot more marketing that's starting up. This weekend, again, total honesty, this weekend it's slowed down a little bit. I've heard that happens with certain Kickstarters, that during the weekend it starts to slow, and then the weekday is kind of where it picks up again. So lots of marketing. I'm going to do more stuff like this. I'm going to really try to get out there as much as possible, because this thing is going to fund. Again, I promise you guys, please stay committed and excited. We're going to pick up some more backers every single day, and we're going to be good to go. So thank you guys. We'll talk soon.